let's start taking a look now at the draft class. And we're going to start with that top pick, Walter Nolan. And oh, by the way, Arizona, just as a little side note, and this really, I guess this doesn't really mean anything, but I am hosting this show, so I might as well give you my take, and that is the fact that I had several teams with an A grade, and Arizona was one of them. So I really liked what they did in the draft. And it starts here with Nolan getting a really good player like Nolan, where they were able to grab him. He could have been a top 10 draft pick. He could have gone that high and nobody would have blinked. That's how talented he is. And taking a look again, we just talked about the two veterans that come in now, and then how deep this unit is. But Nolan, what specifically do you think, with all this depth here on the defensive line, what do you think Nolan can do that maybe the other guys can't?
Well, what he does is, I think he gives them their best true pass rusher from the interior. Darius Robin has some of that, but he's versatile, played edge in the interior when he was at Missouri. And if you look at Nolan, along with like Dante Stills. He and Dante Stills are their best true pass rush, the guys that have the best pass rushing juice from the interior. And Nolan has the athleticism to a much higher level than Stills. And his movements are fluid. He wants to do what Aaron, that's completely unfair to say, or for him to say is he's going to be like Aaron Donald. But if he's like, let's say, Kobe Turner for the first 2 years that he's been in the NFL for the Rams, that's fantastic. I don't know how much he's going to be able to play as a rookie, because you've got all those veterans. You've got last year's first-round draft pick, Darius Robinson, and most of the time the Cardinals only have two interior defenders playing most of the time. They'll go 2 or 3 at any one time, and so it's going to be they're going to end up with they're going to have 6 guys active, 7 guys active, and they're going to be very fresh throughout the game.
Okay. Let's stay, of course, on defense, because that's where 90% of this draft class resides. And let's stay up front and go with Jordan Birch, round 3. So the one knock on Birch from our lad scouting on the kid is he's a little bit hot and cold when it comes to his motor. He needs to be a little bit more consistent in that department. But he's versatile, plays the power game, played obviously big-time ball with Oregon, and then, of course, in the Big Ten this past year. So, again, a really talented player that they were able to get in round 3. What do they like about Birch?
Well, what they like is his physical traits, his physicality. If you look at him side by side, he's built almost just like Darius Robinson, only he's better on the edge than he is on the interior. And he's got length. He's got pass rushing juice. Right now, like in terms of where he sits in the rotation, he's not going to play ahead of Sweater, Collins, or Ojolai, or probably Baron Browning. So he's probably getting them number 4, number 5 in that room. And so they have him playing a couple of spots defensively as depth, and you're going to see him play a role on special teams as a rookie. He's playing. They got him in a lot of fourth down packages right now.
Yeah, matter of fact, special teams looks like it could come into play with several of these kids that they drafted. And that could be good news for Arizona special teams, that's for sure. All right, staying right around that area there at linebacker, Cody Simon, playing with the Ohio State Buckeyes, another Big Ten kid. Matter of fact, with Oregon moving to the Big Ten, there were 4 Big Ten draft picks for Arizona, all on defense. And, of course, Simon being one of them, who is really very good, an elite special teams player at Ohio State. Now, again, I think it looks, just even having you talk about the whole Davis Gaither Wilson thing, it does seem to make sense of why they drafted someone like Simon in this spot, because I'm sure they're hoping that no later than 2026, Simon's a starter.
That is a real thing. And the truth is, he probably has, of all the Cardinals draft picks, he perhaps has the highest upside as a rookie contributor this year. Because if things go well, he could be that every down starter. Like Walter Nolan's going to play, but he's not going to play a lot because of how they play the defensive line. Will Johnson has a chance to be a starter, but I think Cody Simon probably has the highest potential upside, especially where he was drafted. There on day three is the fact that he could. I don't know how tight the competition is. I think the plan is Davis Gaither, but Cody Simon is a guy who has the juice to be able to be that guy. Think of T.J. Edwards, what they had Edwards doing in Philadelphia, that sort of background, only
Okay.
kind of elevated. He's a lot like T.J. Edwards. He like physically he looks a lot like Jordan Hicks, who's been a starter his pretty much most of his career and was a starter here in Arizona for a few years. And so Simon has some high upside. I don't think the plan is for him to start, but keep an eye on training camp and the preseason to see can he make himself a starter over Davis Gaither.
Okay. Now let's go to that secondary, because this is a big reason why I really liked this class a lot. And I mean, you can see my little M behind me kind of tip off, but it's Burke too. And you've got, I mean, 2 years ago, there is no way anybody would have believed that any one team in the NFL would have been able to draft both Will Johnson and Denzel Burke on the same team. No way, because they were both ticketed for the first round and possibly even in the top 15 of the draft. Well, Burke had a little bit more of a slide where people just couldn't figure out why he wasn't making plays later in his career that he was making early in his career. You know, day one, true freshman starter, played all 4 years. Still, that's impressive at Ohio State. Well, Johnson, we all know, based on what we've heard, the reason he slipped even to round two is just some of the teams are scared away by his injury situation, whether or not he's really 100% and whether he's going to be able to be that guy. But even so, our lads still, knowing all the information, we still had him ranked as the number 2 corner in the draft, day one starter. But it only, it just must have been one of those deals that happens every draft where some players just happen to slip through because the whispers about things like injuries or drugs or off the field this, and they just slide. And then 2 or 3 years later, you realize, well, that was a bunch of malarkey. That team who got lucky, and I think that's Will Johnson all day long. The dude is a stud. And yes, no question, if the kid's got some injury issues, anything can happen. He could end up just like a journeyman. But to get him in round 2, Arizona got the steal of the draft. This kid, if healthy, is you're looking at one of the best corners in the league. And then again, to be able to come back in round 5 to get Burke was also just a great move.
Yeah, the Cardinals just they like drafting cornerbacks too. In 3 drafts under Monty Ossenfort, they've drafted 7 cornerbacks. They've drafted 2 this year, 3 last year. But you look at the room, and it felt unnecessary, especially the Burke pick later in the draft. But the news that came out a couple of weeks ago kind of clarified kind of why they went that route, and that's with Sean Murphy-Bunting. They signed him last year, veteran guy. Had a decent year, struggled a little bit early on, but decent year, like quality NFL starter, not high end. He was placed on the non-football injury list, and he's out for the year. He had a knee injury of some sort and needed surgery. So he's out of the picture for this year. And as it was, with Murphy-Bunting in there, you've got Garrett Williams, who's a stud at the slot. They had Star Thomas, who they really like, and last year's second-round pick, Max Melton. Adding Will Johnson to that group made it so somebody, you look at a guy probably like Thomas, and you were going to have to drop him to a solely special teams role, or he would be trade bait potentially because you just got too many cornerbacks in the room that you can keep. Now with Murphy Bunting out for the year, currently the top three, at least in OTAs and minicamp, are the three that figure to be. So you've got Star Thomas, you've got Max Melton, last year's second round pick, and Garrett Williams in the slot. And at very minimum, Will Johnson is going to be that fourth guy. And last year they rotated Melton, Thomas, and Murphy Bunting fairly consistently. Even Melton, who was number 4 of the cornerback rotation, played half the snaps and played them almost all on the boundary. So he would either come in for Murphy Bunting or come in for Thomas. And now Johnson really has a shot. Like he has the tougher route, but he has a higher talent level to be able to be kind of quarterback one. That's like I say, Cody Simon has an easier route to be an every down starter. Will Johnson has the higher talent, but also has that door wide open, because you could see him, being their cornerback one if he's healthy this offseason. And I will say this, that is the one concern about him. He slipped because of the long-term concerns with his knee. And that was frustrating to him because, my knee's fine. My knee feels good. The issue wasn't how he feels now. It's how some team doctors are like, his knee's not going to last 4 years. It's degenerative. But there is an injury concern because over the last 3 years, Johnson has dealt with the knee injury, the shoulder injury, the foot injury, and then in the pre-draft training had the hamstring come up, which caused him to not work out his pro day. And he sat out, he's had a tight hamstring in camp as well. And so while he did get work on 2 out of the 3 days in minicamp, they have been managing his workload, but hamstrings are tricky. So that is the one thing to look at with him. And I will say this, as much as I like Will Johnson as a player, my history with the Cardinals, I follow the Cardinals I will say this. Yeah. If the Cardinals are the ones making the exception for him, they're saying we're right and the league's wrong, there is a thing in the pit of my stomach that says they're not right.
I know.
They're not right.
That's what happens to
the talent of Johnson, though.
Yeah.
Even if he plays at a high level, and I guess that's where the risk comes in. You pick him at number 47, and it's a second round pick. If you get 4 years and that's it, you don't feel as bad about it. So if something happens down the line.
Yeah, I didn't think that was I don't think it was a knock on the teams not taking him. I think it was justifiable, but it was one of those things where, whoever does get him in round 2 is going to be the team that is going to have a great chance of being able to, look at this as just a tremendous get if he can stay healthy. And nowadays with medicine the way that it is, doctors can say anything they want about his knee, it ain't going to last, but we all know that the way things are going nowadays, nobody knows. So, but like you said, it's not a first round draft pick. So it is not the biggest deal in the world if you are at least given 4 good years out of a top player like that. All right, Burke, what have you found out from the Cardinals of what really happened to him and why he turned into a 5th round guy instead of a 1st round guy, which is where he was headed a couple of years ago?
Oh, it's interesting because no one they didn't even talk about him we couldn't believe that we got him in the 5th round. Mm-hmm. It seemed to be that was kind of the general consensus. But what they did like was the experience. They liked the experience. They liked the athleticism. He does have good tape, as long with some questionable. But he's destined as a rookie to play special teams, which he does. He does have special teams experience from his time at Ohio State too. But this year, he's destined to be kind of the back of the cornerback rotation, but as cornerback 5. He's likely gonna bump Keitrell Clark off the roster, who they had the last couple of years, who was another 5th round pick 2 years ago out of Louisville, a guy that Jonathan Gannon really liked. But it appears that his path to the roster is on 4th down and on kickoffs this year. Okay. We'll see what goes from there. But that's kind of the fun part of what the Cardinals have done with their defensive depth. That cornerback room really inexperienced in terms of the youth. Start Thomas going into year three, Garrett Williams into year three are the senior members of the guys that are actually competing for roles and things like that.
Crawford, I know he's a seventh rounder, but did they make any sort of statement on particularly why they like him?
Well, what they really like about him is the athleticism and the elite special teams play. And that's he was one of my favorite picks in terms of like a seventh round pick. Most 7th round picks, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But when you get a guy who has such and you know what his ceiling is. He played at Texas, and what is he at
Yes.
Texas? He wasn't starter material at Texas. If you're not starter material at one of those big schools, you're probably never going to be a starter in the NFL. But then he goes to Nevada. He plays safety. He's a starter, but he's still elite on special teams. He logged over 1,000 special team snaps in his career. He kind of did a little bit of everything, and I think that's kind of where they have him pegged. Now, is a roster spot guaranteed for him? No, because they've got their 2 starters at safety, Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, they're locks. Last year's 4th-round pick, Rabbit Taylor Demerson, a guy who they like on special teams, and 2, is that next up. And I think they view him, I believe they anticipate him being a starter after Jalen contracts expires next year. And so Crawford will be battling with other special teams guys like Joey Blunt, who's been his core special teamer for the last 2 years, extensive experience on the special team. So he's going to be battling for that 4th safety / special teams core guy role. Whether he makes the team or is on the practice squad, that's kind of the role he's destined for this year.
Okay. That is a look at the defensive class. There's only one guy on offense, the Texas guard, and round number 6. So did this make sense? Did this just best player on the board, or a specific reason why they wanted to get a guard when they got him?
Day 3 offensive line, that's kind of been a Cardinals mojo for forever. The day 3 offensive lineman, they've been doing that even back in the days of Steve Keim. Does he have experience? He's smart. He's physical. He comes from a good program. And so he's just someone to add to the roster at the back end. He will probably be this year, based on how things are going, if everyone's healthy, he will likely be, if they keep 9 offensive linemen or 10 offensive linemen, he's offensive line 9 or 10, and he's probably going to be inactive for almost every game this year, as a guy, because they've got their starters. John Gaines is probably their backup center. Royce Newman, as of right now, I would project him because he does have starting experience. He's going to project as their backup guard. They've got Kelvin Beachum as their backup swing tackle, and so Connor is going to be that OL 9 or 10, and he'll likely be. They're going to develop him, and he will probably be inactive for most of the year. But that's kind of how they roll with those late picks. Is if they don't have a role immediately, and they hopefully that's the thing with when you have a roster. You're hoping that your 6th-round pick isn't good enough to start.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because that means your roster is lacking. Because there's a reason why that now 6th-round pick often develop into something great, but not usually as rookies, and you don't count on those guys. So if your 6th-round pick, if you're counting on your 6th-round pick to be a contributor in year 1, you're probably not a very good roster. I think the Cardinals are past that point right now.